decided to get together and talk about delivering technology services through our government agencies, really for the value of, or for the benefit of you, our agencies that operate every day across the country and do so in serving your local communities. I've got three awesome partners here, folks that are colleagues of yours that are out doing the good work in the community every day. And as I was thinking about this topic, we're going to talk about ways in which to bring about change and change in ways in which you can help digitally serve your residents, your constituents, and just maybe think of spring training. A lot of us, I'm a baseball fan. I grew up in St. Louis, and I'm a huge Cardinals fan. And we've got spring training that's happening all across the United States right now. And that's a point in time where you've got a lot of managers and general managers that are looking at like what they have in front of them and saying, hey, gosh, what do I want to go achieve this year and this season? What is winning for me, for this organization? What personnel do I have? What tools and assets do I have? And really then what changes do I need to make? And what upgrades do I need to make to help me go achieve those goals? And the folks we're going to hear from that have done this and have gone out and affected some change, they've done the same thing. They've gone through and said, okay, what do I have and what do I need to go get? And so we're going to tee up some really good conversation. And all of it is going to be focused around the Digital Government Service Delivery Technology Buyer's Guide that PAY had issued, and is a really cool resource that is intended to help you go out and affect change and drive digital transformation for your agency, your department, and folks in like PAY had, here to help. So let's get started. 3 sections. Try to keep this really simple for this webinar. We're going to do introductions a little bit beyond what Michelle walked through with our 3 panelists. I'm going to do a quick refresher on the buyer's guide. If you haven't had a chance to read through it, I really encourage you to go look at it after our webinar, but we'll hit on the top of the waves, and then we'll get into the meat of the conversation, the panel discussion, and we'll really talk about it. We'll go through the 4 major topics that are covered in the buyer's guide, and you get to hear from folks that are out doing this work today and have them, put a lot of context and contour around some of the things that are covered in the document. All right, so let's do further introductions with our panelists. I've got City Treasurer John Globensky, Criminal Court Clerk Mike Hammond, and Chief Information Officer Todd Shanley. A little bit more than what Michelle talked about. And John, I'm going to start with you. Just share a little bit about what you do in the city of Grand Rapids and the services that you say grace over, that you provide to the public.
Sure. Thanks, Jack. As City Treasurer in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we launched this initiative back in 2016 and actually sat down with PAY in 2017. And we took our 4 main services between water, property tax, refuse, and parking tickets. And that was our big launch. That was our big lift. That was 80% of what we typically take in payments in the city. And since that time, we've been iterative. We found out ways to adapt and add more services. So we've added a couple different receivables software programs. We've added community development block grants. And really, it's methodically trying to challenge ourselves to say what's next. So we're talking about delinquent taxes now, and then we're also exploring options like in Mike Hammond's world is how can we envelop the court system? So really, it's once you get started, it becomes that snowball effect. And what more can I deliver for my community?
Cool. Thank you, John. So we'll go over then to Mike Hammond down in Knox County, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Well, go Vols. We're, of course, all orange down here and getting ready for March Madness and so forth. And basically what we do in my office is we keep the record and we collect the funds. That's very basic. I have 3 offices, I have criminal sessions and 4th Circuit, which we would refer to as our family court. One of the reasons why we wanted to go with Pay It was we had an antiquated system. When you're dealing with government funds, as my colleagues will tell you, it's very important that you get it right. As I tell our people, there's 2 things that can get me ousted from office. One is public drunkenness, which is in our state constitution, by the way. And the second thing is misappropriation of public funds. So getting it right and making sure that those funds are properly accounted for is extremely important. And so as we looked at the system that we had and we looked at where we wanted to go, there was no question that we needed to up our game, so to speak. We needed to increase our level of reporting. We need to make things more efficient for our constituents and for the people rather than coming downtown to pay, make it easier for them to pay online and just making it easier for them to pay their court costs. As my colleagues will tell you, if we were selling license plates, people would come in and pay their fee and get a license plate and leave. That's not the way it is in the criminal court system. People come in and we will not know what their charges are until they come out of court. And depending on what those charges are is how we assess the fees and the fines and the forfeitures and so forth. So there's a lot of figuring that has to go on behind the scenes. There's a lot of things involved in the court system that you do not have in the other government offices. And we were looking for a system that would help us do that in a more efficient manner. I will tell you that we have been live with Pay It Now for a day and a half. And so far, things are going well.
Clark Cam, that's great. And thanks for joining us. I mean, so we've got already John Glebensky that's been using Pay It services now for, going on 6 years and 36 hours. So, so you've got, I think that the benefit's going to be, and Todd will ask you to introduce you in a second, but the benefit's going to be today for our webinar. We're hearing from folks that have been through several cycles and folks that are just getting started in their first cycle. So I think you'll get a really good perspective on, what's it like at the very beginning? What's it like, as you've gone through for a number of turns here. Okay, Todd, I'll go over to you in the great state of North Carolina.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Todd Chandler, I'm the CIO here at Cabarrus. I run the enterprise IT environment. So the goal for us is to treat every department like they're our customers. I tell people all the time that we run it as much like a small business as possible, or a managed service provider. So when we talk about partnering and things like that, or I'll reference partners and customers, and that's usually a department on our side. So, and then vendors, we want them to be as much a partner as anybody else, in all of our processes. So we were taking online payments, but we were using a vendor and not a partner. So trying to, targeting a group like Pay It, when we saw the success they had here in North Carolina with the state and the DMV system, I personally was using it to renew my tag with the chatbot, and that innovation and that level of, thing was something that we really wanted for our constituents here in Cabarrus. So we jumped on the Pay It bandwagon pretty quickly, and it's, it's been a fun ride already.
I agreed. Thanks, Todd. And by the way, I think John and I are both a little jealous that you'll be here feeling some 80-degree weather today. We're not.
It's beautiful here. I don't have a cold. I have allergies because all the trees and everything else has bloomed up overnight here. So it's great weather here today.
We'll be behind it. So cool. This is a great group. I'm excited. Like, again, different perspectives. So I expect that, as an audience member and someone that's attending this webinar, I'm optimistic and confident that you're going to find something you can relate to from a local government standpoint, whether it's at a city or county, different branches of the government, or on the IT side, something that, these three panelists are going to walk through their experience. And I'm confident you're going to find something like, oh yeah, I've either been there or I want to be there. So, and just by way of introduction, Jack Laskowitz, I work with Pay It. Been very blessed to do so for a number of years, work alongside our clients for a long time. And now I've got my hands in a lot of different pots, helping a lot of folks serve our clients, our agency partners here, and in their service to their constituents and their residents. I'm going to move forward, and I want to make sure that for the folks that are attending that at least don't have a good sense of who Pay It is or what we do, and just at a glance, I'm going to spend a minute on this. But really, we are purpose-built and solely focused on state and local government service. And doing so, we really like the concept of helping our agency partners take the friction out of their residents, their constituents, transacting with their governments. That should be a simple and as easy as possible process. And we've devoted the last 10 years to helping them do that. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been, good, hard work, because it's not easy. But I tell you what, it's also incredibly rewarding. So Pay It gets the opportunity to serve over 80 million citizens in the terms of the geographies that we cover. We do so in service that I talked about, taking friction out. And that's done through creating really simple, easy to use interfaces for the public, delivering those services in what we call a composable way. So on a platform that's not months and years and tens of millions of dollars in funds, but rather weeks and months time. to deliver those services, because it's all about we believe it's all about configuring and not customizing that help you and help our agency partners deliver those services. And when that happens, and it's surprisingly easy and a surprisingly simple set of experiences occur for the resident users, what you actually get to see is you end up seeing faster collections. You see lower operational burdens because support costs down, walk-in traffic, call-in traffic goes down because folks are choosing to go that digital route when it's easier for them. So that's what Pay It does. We do so all across North America, and these three panelists are three folks that have as Todd, as you mentioned, jumped on the bandwagon, and I'm confident we've been able to deliver some really good results, and we continue to see some really good momentum as we move forward. So that's what Pay It is. So you've heard my spiel, and just bear with me for a moment or two more. I want to give you a bit of a buyer's guide refresher. So this is that document I referred to, and across the top here, these 4 sections are the topics we're going to discuss today. So it's like finding that champion to champion the cause of modernization, somebody that will help you bring about that change and move from an idea to action in your department or your agency. Identifying and creating the right requirements for technology vendors. I mean, it's no surprise that not every vendor is created equal. And what you want to think about is, when we talk about in the guide, is finding that vendor and having the idea of what you want in a vendor that will go where you're trying to go, which may be different than where you've come from or where a particular vendor has been with you in the past. The third item is user experience driving adoption. And one of the things that I mean by that is, especially in an experience with an integrated payment, it's one way to just say, hey, I've got a digital payment option for you, but it's another one to have an experience that encourages digital adoption. That's where your residents actually choose to go use that online channel because it is the best one for them. And mostly, especially during the pandemic, a lot of us got really used to doing things from our smartphones and doing things from our computers, and a lot of folks aren't going back because they found that, gosh, this is a lot easier for me to do than to spend a half a day taking a trip down to a particular office or phoning in or mailing different paperwork. And finally, the technical must-haves. At the end of the day, a lot of this is technology and identifying ways and things that are important to the method and the manner in which the technology is delivered is important. I think of that as, and I know Todd does too, that's the iceberg that's below the water. How things are really set and structured. Those are the things that really tend to matter in terms of what's going to be easier for you in the long run, what's going to be more efficient for you in the long run, or efficient for you to implement at the beginning. So those are the four topics we'll go through, and it's really not one topic that's going to rule the day in terms of driving modernization and driving that digital transformation that we know you want to do in your department or agency, but rather these topics all coming together. And that's one of the reasons why we put together that buyer's guide, is to help you think about and help you put together your approach. And so that when you do invest that time and energy around driving that initiative, your chances of success are as high as they possibly can be. Okay, so that's the most I'm going to talk, I promise. But now we're going to let the real experts talk. And again, I'm going to walk through each of these topics, and we're going to drive some discussion here. So the first one is championing that modernization. And the points we've got is, you've got to identify that person, maybe it's you, to be that driver of excitement around the impact of changing that resident experience, the best thing there. And we think the best combo is that excitement plus the authority to drive those purchasing decisions, someone that can really drive that change. And so with that, Clerk Mike Hammond, I'm going to start with you. You've obviously had the most recent change of those services. Like, how did that get championed at Knox County? What were some of the factors that got this from a wish to reality?
Well, I must tell you that I was elected to this office in 2014. I came from the private sector, and when I came into the office, I was shocked at how far behind we were. not only from our credit card processing and all of that, but just basic things in the office. Some of our people were still using typewriters. I know that that sounds strange, but that was true. We had people in the office that had been here for 30 years or more, and they were not used to technology, did not want technology. And so we really had to change a culture so that we could do that. We had people who would come to our counters, for example. They couldn't understand why they could go to Walmart and get a transaction done and get it done quickly. And they would come to our counter and it seemed like it would take forever. And so we knew that we needed to do some modernization. We had a company that we were using when I came on board. And so we were trying to work with them to get the things that we felt we needed. Quite frankly, we didn't feel like that they were delivering what we felt we needed to have to serve our constituents. And so we started looking at what our options were. I will tell you, I had not heard of Payit, but as it was presented to me from our finance people and from others, and as we looked at your background and as we looked at your track record, we became more and more intrigued with the idea of, okay, what if we brought them on board for the court clerk's office? We met with your folks, came in, impressed with what you had to offer. We felt like that this was a way that we needed to go. We, of course, in government, we have procurement processes we have to go through, but we also found that we really didn't need to go through that because of contracts that you all have existing across the state of Tennessee. So basically, we were able to piggyback on some of those, which saved us a lot of time once we had made the decision. My office in Knox County is a little unique across the state in that we are what we call a true fee office. And that is, I'm responsible for all of our expenses. Knox County gives us money for basic operation, such as copy paper, toner, copy machines, that type of thing. But when it comes to salaries and benefits and the retirement program, I'm responsible for every penny. So therefore, every dollar that we collect is important to us. And I emphasize every dollar. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't leaving any money on the table, that we were able to get an efficient system that would help us with those collection efforts, but to also make it easier for our constituents to be able to pay online rather than stand in line and having to come down here or, whatever they needed to do to get those payments. And so I think Payit started, we did the contract, and I believe the Payit started maybe in October. We had weekly meetings. I think you all were on site maybe a half a dozen times, making sure that things were going smoothly. And so as a result, we went live yesterday. And so when you ask who was championing it, not only myself, but our entire staff, things were very clunky. It was taking forever to do reconciliations. Our reporting process took forever. And so the people in our finance office on our 6th floor were constantly saying, hey, when are you going to get us this report? When are you going to get us that report? And we say, we're trying, we're doing the best we can. Our system's antiquated. So they were all behind us getting a brand new system. And so I think it was a collective effort on all of our parts because we recognized that something had to be done to make things more efficient, to make it better, and to also serve our citizens because, as I told you before, they think they can go to Walmart or Target or somewhere, and they can, but yet they come to the courthouse and they're government, and it's like government ain't working for us as well as it should.
Yeah, well said. So it brings it, I think you told me once before, it's like it brings it into the 21st century. And
that's right.
So they're expecting, it's easy to meet them where they're at. Todd, I'll go over to you. So there's, especially with a technology provider, there's an IT role to be played in championing a change like that. How does that get championed, from your point of view, and how does that partnership work between, what some folks would say the business and IT?
So as a CIO, I'm always excited about a new change or something like that. So, we're constantly wanting to do a new project or run towards something that's, bright and shiny. But without the department on board, it's really just us, rocking somebody's boat that didn't, was happy with the way it was working. So we really have to work with those line units, those departments, or our partners or customers, as we like to call them. So we don't bring that department along with us. We can champion it or jump up and down and say, hey, look at this chatbot and look at this cool tech that this will do if we don't get them on board early. The project's just not going to be a success. So Paya did a great job with that. I think that, I think about the team that, we implemented. So, I felt like it was yesterday in the group that you guys have, and how I've watched them all move up through the company. I just kind of laugh now that I'm like, hey, that was my person. So, they did such a great job with us trying to really come in and be that partner. This isn't a pay it story, but I force myself to tell it all the time, because one of the things that as an IT professional that drives me crazy is we have vendors come in and they want to tell the customer or the department, hey, this project's so great or so easy, you don't have to have IT. And it's a two-way street. So the department really needs to make sure that they're partnering with their IT group to get that done. And I know in some jurisdictions that's music to their ears, because they may not have that reliable IT department to work with or what have you, or they have, there's hurdles or, roadblocks. But in my office, that's a red flag every single time. So I was really pleased that the pay it methodology and outlook was really to really, get our tax administrator on board and the tax collector. You talk to them almost as more or as much as they reach out to us. I mean, we had to partner and talk about tech a lot, but without that partnership, the project wouldn't have been a success. But now that I'm bought in, you don't have just that one silo of, okay, we're here in the tax office. Now that we're hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're going to implement pay it as another function for another department, and then another, and then another, and then move point of sale, and so there's a lot of opportunities once you have that synergy, or that partnership that you're talking about, or that champion that's kind of taking the project and then going, oh, well, doesn't that fit over here, versus that single silo. So I think that's just been my experience in the 26 years I've been here. I've seen them good and bad. They all end up working out, but it's just how much bleeding do you do on the way there.
Yeah. There's a part in the guide that talks about find a place to start, and find a place to start that's meaningful. I think that some folks tend to go to let's go to a really low risk, very small piece, but the time it takes to get that done, it hasn't made a material difference. I know you three have done is let's go make a difference in one spot and then start adding on. John and I were talking about that just a little while ago. Todd, if you don't mind, I just want to do a quick follow-up to something you said, and the sort of the talk track around you don't need IT. I mean, and you clearly haven't heard that from us, but
no. I always hesitate to say it, to the wrong group, but it is my pet peeve, so I try to say it often as possible.
I think though that it's an important point where, for the different departments, if your customers, and in terms of championing a change like this, they've got you're a key partner in this. So it's either something that comes from IT or it comes to IT. And I think that sometimes there's a common fear from an IT professional standpoint that a provider or a vendor or a partner like Pay could be a threat to the existence of IT, even if it's not said. What advice would you give the folks that are on this webinar to say that's not really the case, but the way in which it should be positioned would be as what?
Oh, I think it's an extension of our team. I look at it. So I came here. We were a very small group. It was it was probably 15 or less people here 26 years ago in the IT department, and now we're almost 40 people, and we still don't have enough people to get all of that work done. So if you don't embrace that and work with somebody, then you're just going to continue to be doing it. And I don't care. I have great programmers. I put my team up against anybody in the country, private or otherwise. I think they're an amazing team, but there's only so many hours in a day. So we won't get to that innovation step without that investment of working with a partner like a Pay It or any of the other folks we've worked with through the years. You guys you're gonna focus on that best of breed and deliver payment. And then, like the clerk was saying, there's a whole lot of threat when you start talking about dollars and everything else that we don't want to, I get a little antsy when we start talking about credit card payments and things like that. So being able to partner with a group that, this is their core function and they can help us develop, a better product at the end of the day.
Well said. Okay, with that, I'm gonna move to the next slide. Otherwise, I think we're gonna go to stay on this first slide for the for the entire webinar. So we talk about define what you need from a technology vendor, and it's so important to understand like kind of what it is generally you want. I wouldn't say you don't need to have the entire recipe for what you want, but what are the things that are important? And when we talk about in the guide, think of things like composability. It's easy for a lot of software companies to say, well, for the right time and money, we'll build you whatever you want. But rather, there are aspects of speed and I'd say economics that make what we call composability and a very appealing factor and something that should be considered. Composability meaning like taking a platform and it's configurable in a way that says, oh yeah, you've got your requirements, great. This platform, it just needs to be, this toggled over here, this toggled over here, this phrase needs to say this thing. So that's an important function. It's something that you have to decide that's important to you. And then there's a trade-off, from an integration and connectivity standpoint. Open APIs, application programming interface, or a walled garden. Is it important to you that everything is in one space, but you may be limited in what you can access or get, or you want to make a change? Gosh, it might be a little bit more expensive for you. Or we want to do the flexibility. I would say from a paid standpoint, we are subscribers to the open API movement, if you will, to say like, yeah, we'll connect to those things. And then finally, at the end of the day, it's a people business. And even if we're thinking of technology vendors, really it's important to consider the team that will serve your agency. Is that a team? Is it 1-800 number? What is that? And so those are some key components or requirements to be thinking. So with that setup, Todd, I'll stick with you for a minute. You've seen the evolution of technology for a long time. You said 26 years. What do you think about in terms of the build versus buy versus configure, compose, if you will, the new term?
Yeah. So I wrote in my notes about customizable or configurable is usually the buzzword that we get stuck on. Again, going back to the beginning, when I first got here, it was all Unix servers and mainframe. So yeah, everything was custom written. So there was an expectation from my customers that we can do anything and it'll work exactly like they had this ability to say, well, we wanted to do this and put in that request and it happens. So there's a lot of good from that, but it's not sustainable. So we made an effort, I want to say it's been years and years ago now, 15, 20 years ago, that when Windows really kind of took over the environment, that we were going off the shelf. So we buy customizable applications that we can partner with, make sure there's some success, do as much of the vetting, and that I can only imagine what that, if I go back through my notes with the list of questions I would ask partners back then versus what I'm worried about now. Did I care about an API, that long ago? It probably wasn't even on my list. It was just, which brand of Windows does it run on? So there was a lot of that we worried about, but cybersecurity and that API that you're talking about is really the window for us. If we don't have an API, that conversation pretty much, as we were talking about a minute ago, stops at that one project. Knowing that there's an ability to stretch this to my building inspection application or the landfill or somewhere else like that, we've got all these disparate off the shelf applications. As much as, I tell people all the time in local government that we manage 15, 25 different lines of business. There's folks that work in retail and they have one ERP and there's one kind of stream of what's going on in that piece. But in local government, there's these 25 different departments who have 25 different goals and they have different software, and a couple of them have, many of them have different software on everything. So that's the challenge. And then then you bring in a pay it to enhance what's going on with that. I mean, there's plenty of partners who they have their own payment gateway or something like that. But is it that best of breed, and does it check all the boxes that we want it to be able to do? And that's I think that's how we've been successful in the last couple of years is really finding those partnerships and bringing them together. You guys didn't know our tax provider when you met them, but my team worked on the API with your team, and we really, there was a lot of success in that, and we're really proud of it.
Yeah, same. I want to switch gears a little bit and go over, John, I want to go over to you and on this last bullet point in terms of the people aspect. Technology at the end of the day, at least as of today, for the most part, is still being created and evolved by people. How does one evaluate that with potential vendors?
I think when we looked at it, we have our situation. Everybody's organizations will be slightly different. We're not going to all have a large team of IT. We're going to have maybe some that are all contracted. When we started this project, we had one IT director, and everybody else was contracted. And so when we are looking at the key requirements for tech vendors, when we were actually doing our RFP search, we had a lot of the major players. The difference is that they had 1,000 to 2,000 customers. And so we identified a key requirement was that we wanted a partner to walk with us. I don't have dedicated IT resources that I can spend the money on to bring people in and get us up to speed. And so that was where we really settled on our award, was the fact that I have a person who's going to help me understand my data, how to extract the data, provide it in a reasonable fashion, utilize minimal IT resources to make sure that we can set this up, make it configurable so it can be executed overnight, and use APIs where we can use APIs. If I've got other backend systems that I can't connect, then what can be delivered to me in an importable file that takes my team a couple minutes to import a massive amount of payments at the very next day. And really it was understanding with each business unit, because when we did our RFP, I invited the 4 different departments and their key players to walk with me through the process. And I was the primary champion along with our 311 director as we were redesigning our website and looking at our platform to work within our community to accept payments and to process this type of work. We identified that 86% of people touching our website wanted information about a bill or to pay a bill. And so that just screamed volumes within your organization to recognize that it's not about the agenda minutes that they're attached getting to your website to read. It's how do I transact business with the organization? And so really it was starting to talk about that relationship is not, it's not a commodity. As we're going and putting these requirements out there for tech vendors, it's not a commodity. You're not buying salt, milk, and eggs, and that everybody has salt, milk, and eggs. You're buying, and you're investing in this relationship, and that's the key for us when we're working with a technology vendor. Is are you listening to us? Are you hearing what we're asking? Are you explaining to us and helping us understand and walk with you through the entire process? And so that really is what is critical in my mind, because I'm not a technology person. I'm a person who sits on the other side of the computer going, is it easy for me to transact business? And can I think of my 82-year-old father doing the same thing? Can I think of my 28-year-old daughter doing the same thing? And how do they actually interact with us? And so that's why I say we're talking about it. It's at the end of the day, it's the client representatives, it's the client managers, it's the support folks that are on the other end of the phone, they're on the other end of the email, that are actually walking with you as you design the process, you set it up, you go through the process like Mike has done, where now he's got his team there. They're just live right now, a day and a half in. And it's uplifting the entire organization to have that all hands on deck. Let's be prepared. And really it has to be that strategic partnership. I want somebody to walk by my side and to be there, that I want to bring to my presentations. I want to bring to my city commission to say, look at what we've been able to accomplish. And it's that relationship that each of the background program, the background Pay It platform is the same for all of us. We haven't customized anything. It's simply a configuration. The language that both Todd and Mike use and their chatbots is going to be slightly different than mine, because Midwest might be different than Southeast, might be different than Middle South. And so you have to be prepared for that. But that's on us. And that's on us. That's what we do. That's what us as a city has done to recognize how the bot is language and conversation goes with our community. But also we test the product. We test every type of thing that we've done, every integration or every new tool we've added, every new option that's come out. My team invests the time to script and test everything. That's where our value is to this. We trust Pay It with the back-end solution, but we need that strategic partner to walk with us, teach us, help us understand, and actually we both become better, because we're giving Pay It what ifs and they're giving us, you can do this or a better solution. And so it's that two-way street to have that feedback and how we can present ideas and actually grow together.
Are you muted, Jack?
I clicked and it didn't work. Well, it was really good, guys.
That's okay. I think it's me.
I owe you each $1. But anyways, what I was saying is that it's that evolutionary component that you're talking about, that it involves, people and the dialogue between a vendor, between the department, and then even at times between the public, and to be able to evolve that experience to make sure it's optimized. And it can be challenging sometimes if it's a monolithic set it and forget it kind of model, because sometimes it won't, there are tweaks that need to occur. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. Got 2 more topics in 20 minutes, so we're right on time. It's great. So then the third topic that we talked about is that user experience driving adoption. So option versus adoption was the component here. Our panelists here have already used some of these terms about making it simple, easy to use services. That's a little tiny arrow that goes up. So there's actually was a Deloitte study that said a positive, easy to use or simple digital experience with a government agency created a level of trust between that resident and that agency multiples higher than a difficult digital experience. Making it effective doesn't just stop at the resident, but actually effective and efficient. Mike, I think you were using that term earlier, for the agency is the other benefit. So it's really a two-sided coin here. And really the equation includes both. And then finally, we talk about reducing your risk by shifting online. And so a lot of folks here would probably cringe at the PCI, right? The PCI burden and the PCI risk. I mean, that is, Todd's nodding his head. He's like, yeah, there's a lot to it. And identifying a vendor that can take on that risk on your behalf, really, one, it shifts the risk and it reduces risk for the agency, and is really, I think, placed in the right spot. So with all that said, John, I'm going to stick with you. And, City of Grand Rapids has many, you talked about it, services that have, we've seen several cycles to see the impact of the user experience. So when you're thinking of simple, what does simple look and feel like beyond just concept?
When we talk about simple, when we actually went through the whole engagement stage, we actually asked people within our community to test drive the product before we actually rolled it out. And so we used your staging environment. We created our conversation. We set up test scripts. And we actually asked people to kick the tires. We were asking community members to participate. We had a 1,600 person user testing group. We didn't use all of them, but about 800 actually participated. And we gave them specific scripts, and we sat back and we watched how they interacted. And they would comment on different things. They might not like a word. They might think it's not as simple or could be simpler. The key is that you sit back and you listen. accept their feedback. Everyone's going to have a different level of IT comfort, but we want to make sure that this is usable by the vast majority of our population. And be prepared to make changes. Be prepared to be flexible and adjust and shift and report that progress back. I mean, we were giving $5 gift cards to local businesses in our community for people that participated and helped us out as a thank you for your time to help us build the best possible user experience and product. Reach out to your neighborhood associations or local colleges that can actually have, maybe that could be an easy student project to help them test what's easy for your group. You know, I'm reading ahead because I was reading somebody's comment in our question, and theirs is not just the payments, but they're saying, hey, how do I create something that's for daycare and Parks and Rec signups that might not be fee-based? You know, that's what a technology partner does. That's what a strategic partner does, is how can I build that same thing into the product offering? Because I'm sure that in the Parks and Rec, or I'm sure that in daycare and Parks and Rec, somebody has to create a user account. And with that user account, you have specific data that you're going to collect. And so, you know, this is where your strategic partner is going to say, hey, I think we have, I know it doesn't accept a payment, but maybe there's a really easy way for us to help you navigate getting these people to do that work online under the same single sign-on, single platform that Payit offers. You know, I know the primary business is to connect people with property taxes, parking tickets, court costs, revenues, but you can develop this into other things. And that's what's so important about having that strategic partnership, is that what value is that to your organization and to your community to make that efficient and effective, to help people sign up for those classes so it's not a burden, and to get their child into daycare. And that's the value of this type of partnership.
Now I double clicked and muted again. Okay, I'm back. Well said. And John, you mentioned before, you didn't launch all those things at one time. You started with a handful and then grew it, which, you know, you're now seeing those dividends paying back because of the scale. And frankly, I know you're not done. So there's plenty to do in Grand Rapids. I know that. I'm going to switch over to Clerk Mike Hammond. As you mentioned before, you've recent transition. Just in terms of the simple experience, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but what would you say you're expecting, and what are you most excited about with respect to this change?
Well, we're excited about the fact it works. We started back in October, and almost from day one, we got our people involved here locally. Our people at the counter, all of our finance people who dealt with the public, people who handled money. And we started a process of, what would you like to see from this system? What are you hearing from people? And so we made a list. And as we met with the folks from Payit, they had ideas, of course, with best practices. And we talked with them about, okay, here's what we would like to see from a system. Here's what we think we need. We were never told, no, we can't do that. You do it this way, or, you know, you'll do it this way and you'll like it. They never did that. They said, okay, let's see if we can make this work. And they did. And so what excites us about this system is that we can do recurring payments. Now, I know my colleagues are saying, what? You couldn't do recurring? No, we couldn't do recurring payments with the system we had. And that's important for us, because in the criminal court system, once they get out of this building, we may not find them again. They may move, who knows? And so once we get them here, if we can get a good email address, a good credit card, and set up a payment plan, and we can set it up to where every month we know we're going to get X number of dollars, it's easy for them, it's easy for us. We couldn't do that. The other thing that we couldn't do was give them balances. So let's say they were to go online and they were to say, well, how much do I owe? The system we had would not show them that. And so they would call and they would say, well, how much do I owe? Well, you know, we'd have to go into the system and try to figure it out. Under this system, they know what they owe. It's right there. And so that has a huge, huge benefit for us. The other thing, of course, is, as I mentioned, our reporting. We're able to come in at the end of the day, at the end of the month. Of course, we've only had one day, but it's working very well. And we're also getting email confirmations, which we could not do before. And so now when people yesterday came in and did a transaction on the Payit system, they're getting an email confirmation. All of those things excite us because we couldn't do that before. And, most people have been doing that for a long time. And so now the fact that we are able to do that and provide that service, I think is just huge. And you talked about creating trust in your governmental office. I think that goes a long way because people can see their balance, they know what they've paid, they get a receipt, etc. And it's easy and it's quick. And so we started yesterday with the online service. We're going to move that over to our phone operators and our frontline clerks, and all of the training that has been done by the folks at Pay It has huge dividends. And there's going to be more training. They're not stopping. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why, there were several reasons why we wanted to go with Pay It. But when I saw that this is your 20th anniversary and you're serving 80 million people, that says to me that Pay It's going to be here a while. And so a man of my advancing years is not going to be in this office forever, but I feel comfortable that when I vacate this office, my predecessors will come in and they're going to have a system that will be updated with the latest technology, the latest business practices. They're going to listen to us if we decide that, hey, we need something else on this system. Can you do it for us? We feel like they're going to work with us to do that. I just can't say enough about the technical support and just the support we've gotten from everybody involved in Pay It. And so when you say, gosh, I hope you can sense my excitement, because when it went live yesterday and we were watching it and we were going through it and we were seeing people actually going online and it was working, we thought, wow, these folks just didn't sell us a bill of goods. They are actually doing what they say they will do.
That's great. And a fun time. And I tell you, just for the folks on this webinar, it takes two to tango on that. So I know that Clark Hammond's got a great team, and that's where those things come together to develop an experience like that. But the fundamentals are really the pieces that make a lot of that work. Well said. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to the last. I know we've got 9 minutes left, so we're going to lightning round. And so the technical must-haves. Todd, you always probably feel like the lightning round is the technical stuff, right? So, but we've covered a lot of this ground already, so I think we'll be able to cruise through it. But I'd say Pay It. We've been pretty firm and open and said that open API should be open. API should be open and interoperable. That connects those things. It gives, and Todd, we've talked about this. It gives you optionality and avoids things like some lock-in. Another point that we want to make sure is that when you're evaluating from a technology standpoint is that as your vendor, are the technology skills at least up as up to par as your technology team? Are they going to be able to walk together using John's language? And then just goes without saying that security should be in everything that we do together. And so with those things, just a little bit more about interoperability, Todd. I just want to hear you talk about it because I think you have a pretty good opinion on this. And does interoperable mean the same provider for the front and back end?
No, and that's the biggest misnomer, and it's difficult. And I did a little after John mentioned the questions were visible, so I snuck ahead. So as we're short on time, I kind of want to answer one of the questions or help kind of one of the questions with this answer is Pay It works, and it's my payment gateway of choice. I know that's kind of boiling it down to lowest common denominator there for what we're doing. Obviously, the API and the interconnectability of what we're doing with multiple platforms. But I saw the Parks and Rec was one of the questions. One of the issues that we're running into is it's the lack of flexibility on that provider's ability. So you have to remember sometimes they're making their money on the transaction. So you're getting the software at a very low rate and that ability to be able to do that. So you do end up with multiple payment gateways. I don't want to tell anybody that if I could, I'd implement Pay It everywhere because it's obviously our choice and our interaction's been great. But at the same time, it's not going to be we're not going to force it or shoehorn it into a situation where Pay It and my team can't be successful when we walk away from that partnership with that department. So. And then innovation, that's really the part that you guys bring to the table from a technical must-have for me is, you guys brought a lot of innovation in. I know everybody's got a chatbot now. ChatGPT is blowing up the internet. So, but you guys had that, long before most had that, that app and that ability to have that interaction. So those are the big things that kind of pop out for me. And then just to echo what Mike has said a couple of times is there should be, our constituents have that expectation that their government delivers the same way that, you visit your doctor online, you get things shipped from the grocery store, Target, or anywhere else, in a moment's notice, on your doorstep, and Amazon, and in those interactions. So the government should be able to deliver a like transaction. And one of the things that you guys brought to the table, which again, like Mike was saying, our other person wasn't able to deliver, was a shopping cart feature. So, be able to pay multiple tax bills on one trip. We didn't have that from that vendor. And that's the difference. So, pay it's a partner because they're looking to innovate and sit on top of that. There's a lot of payment gateways out there that are going to treat you very much like a vendor. And that's the difference for me.
Yeah, Todd, it makes me recall there was someone in the city of Toronto that uses some of our services, one for parking tickets. Someone literally tweeted out, why am I paying for my parking tickets like I'm shopping on Amazon? In a good way. She's LOLs and all the
absolutely
emojis, but she's like, this is amazing. Okay, I'm gonna go, John, I'm gonna go to you for the last question here before we turn over to some Q&A. But this all comes together. Finding the right vendor for you has components of the different topics we talked about today. And then making sure that there's that, finding the vendor that has skin in the game. And those cycles that you've talked about, walking alongside you. So just to kind of bring this together, finding the right vendor to bring all those pieces together, what are the aspects you think are the most salient that you want to make sure that this audience leaves thinking about?
I think really what you should think about is that even though this is shown as box 1, 2, 3, 4, we're all at different sections of those boxes, right? I'm primarily driving that user experience and adoption. I had others that helped me champion modernization. I had others that I would identify key requirements for tech vendors and also technical must-haves so that we fit our technology change group's idea of what I need to have for not only PCI compliance and cybersecurity, but also that the vendor I'm working with has Amazon Web Service, AWS. So we're talking about the highest level potential security that's out there. We know that the Department of Defense uses it. Several other U.S. departments, governmental departments use it. I can go home and I feel secure that the data and information is protected. It's not on my network. As Mike has pointed out, it is the public trust. How are we holding their money? How are we holding their information? Are they insecure providers? Those are the things that, yes, could get us walked out of the office pretty quickly if that public trust is destroyed. But when I look at that partner, it's that client team that was built around me. It is knowing who our support folks are. It is knowing that if I'm having an issue, our Pay It team came in January, and you have to be able to have honest conversations with folks. It's very simple. If I have a problem, it's understood, or there's clarifying questions asked, and we work through it. That's what we do in our families, and that's kind of what you're going to need to do with a strategic partner. And so I don't want somebody to come in and set up a solution and then walk away. And, then I'm having to navigate all the different calls to support. I'm having to navigate finding the right person there. No, and in this type of environment, I have not only a client manager, that manager has a support person to help us, so a team helps us. There's an implementation team, there's the tech team, there's the back-end support that helps our customers at Pay It. There's the front-end folks that we talk to in terms of even more sales reps. I can get a hold of Jack whenever. Fortunately, I've got him on text message, but I can get a hold of Mike Plunkett, who helps write up our contracts. I can get with anyone. And that's really, I think, the primary driver when I look at this is that my dad taught me you do business with a handshake, and your word is your word. And that's what I don't want to have to fall back onto a contract. We work these things out. If there's something that right with a contract, you work with your purchasing department, you work with the vendor or your strategic partner, and you create an addendum, and you find a way to work through the situation. It truly, truly, truly is that strategic partner that's going to be asking you, hey, what do you dream about? What do you think this is going to look like in 1, 3, and 5 years? And you can now have some conversation. We're not working from a position that we have to modernize immediately. Now we're thinking about, hey, we're in a good spot right now because 80% of our payments are electronic. Now we're sitting there go, hey, in 1, 3, or 5 years, how do I get to 90%? How do I innovate new services? How do I bring in new departments or departments that haven't been serviced in the past? How do I bring them into the fold to help them experience what we are, to help them with their own efficiencies, because we continue to be asked to do more with less. And that's a struggle I think a lot of us have faced in our careers, is that type of challenge, because we have finite resources. I can't go out and raise my prices just like a retailer can. I can only raise it based on our property tax millages. So yeah, sometimes it's a struggle, but you need that partnership.
Yep, amen to that. John, well said. So we're at the top of the hour. I heard your little ding on your computer, so that was a good reminder to me. First of all, I just want to thank our panelists. Y'all have been awesome, and it's just a pleasure to work alongside you and to support you every day. I want to thank our folks that have attended. You've invested an hour with us. I'm confident that investment's going to pay off. We're here to help you. First thing, even in the resources here or on our website under the resource section, go through that buyer's guide. It is built to help you drive the right kind of change you've been wanting to drive. So it's got great stuff on there, additional advice for champions, a really cool checklist on there. So please don't hesitate and use that as a resource. And finally, so we obviously work with a lot of high overachievers. They already went through and answered our Q&A during the session. So that's perfect. So I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to throw it back over to Michelle to wrap us up.
Okay, thank you, Jack, and thank you, Todd and John and Mike, for such a great presentation. We would also like to thank Payit for making today's webinar possible. As a reminder,